that we're changing, but some of the structure, some of the thinking has yet to be worked through fully. As I say, it is a touch point. I want to go through with you how the thinking is around its structure. Also seeking your feedback today on this first draft, but also welcoming any comments that you might wish to email through to me on this draft, but also to look at where we're going next and what we're trying to aim for. And also how you want to be included in seeing next drafts. Just a quick recap that we prepared last year a background information paper that was used as part of the partner and stakeholder engagement that we conducted through workshops and focus groups late last year and early this year. You will recall that we've had a number of workshops early this year as well, looking at the vision, principles and themes. We've taken that away and we've spent time with staff developing high-level goals, focus areas and objectives. So this is really what you're seeing in the first draft so far. Quick high-level view of the structure itself of the document, the high-level contents. This is almost the contents page, if you like. And the idea on this is that we have line of sight from top to bottom. So, and also from bottom to top. So anyone can look at the actions, the objectives, and see how that fits with our visions and see how it works through the principles and the partnerships. So you've got the telescopic high-level view down to the detailed, more microscopic view. Yeah.
Did you want questions on the way through, Graham, or are you going to try and rattle through it?
I will try and rattle through it and leave as much time as possible for questions and discussion. There's always a risk we don't get through it otherwise. You've got plenty to discuss. So just taking those elements in turn, we've done some work on a vision statement. I don't think we've finally settled on that as yet, but we've got a draft statement. An alternative is that we have a description, we paint a picture of what WAIPA's environment could be like in 30 years' time, what we aspire to. That gives an opportunity for inputs that we've had from the community and from those EnviroSchool videos that we got at the end of last year. And we could do both. We can certainly have both, but the key thing is that we have consistency with an environmental lens, admittedly, with Ahuaki, the 2050 growth strategy, council's vision, all of that stuff. We can't have different visions in different documents. So we certainly need that consistency. So there's more work to be done on that section. The strategic context, you'll be familiar with the top part of that diagram. It's from the long-term plan. The key strategic planning document is, of course, Ahuaki, which is the blue circle below the colourful diagram. Ahuaki will inform the environment strategy. The environment strategy also informs Ahuaki, and that's really great because they're both being developed in the same time scale. So there's a lot of information sharing and collaboration being done and to be done to ensure that those documents are well aligned. And the implementation priorities of the strategy will obviously feed into those for Ahuaki, and the priorities for Ahuaki will feed into the long-term plan for 2024. So hopefully that's all lining up quite nicely. Do feedback if you're finding at any stage that more needs to be done on that, because we're going to say we've got to get it right. In terms of the partnership and principles, the current thinking is that this is the next section after the strategic context. The partnership section that's in the draft at the moment is a straightforward copy from the original that was in the background paper. We are fully aware that it needs reworking.
Could I just ask you there, Graham, about taking a balanced approach? Was something that came out of the engagement with the community in Iwi? Because it's a bit ambiguous.
Yeah. Okay. Can we just park that and come back to it? Otherwise, I can't say we'll park it for one member and not another. We certainly want to rework that partnership statement. We know that we've got to work with community groups as well as Iwi and Mana Whenua. So we probably need to broaden that partnership statement. The principles are as we left them back in March, except that I've added a paragraph to explain them. Now, those words may change and may need to change, which may speak to your point. The last point at least probably needs to be reworded as it is, as well as redrafting the paragraph beneath that. One of the things that we certainly need to do is to clarify what we mean, what's the role, what's the relationship of what on there is indigenous knowledge, Mataranga Maori. All that's got to be rethought through. We're very conscious of that. So, yeah, really keen for yet more feedback on those kind of things.
Graham, can I just, the fourth one from the bottom, equitable, efficient, and effective. I'd like to have something that says, and cost-effective resourcing. Cost-effective resourcing. Because it's not an open checkbook by any manner of means.
Okay, I've just noted that. Thank you. And then we start to drill down into some of the sort of more environmental detail with 6 environmental challenges. These are the same. These are almost the same as we had in the background paper, except what we had as water management, we've now put into part of implementing Te Whaimana. That those are the same key challenges. Each description is kept short to approximately 150 words for consistency wherever we can. So this is rather than produce a summary of the strategy, keep it short. If anyone wants more details, the detail is going to be there, but it's going to be done in endnotes. That's my thinking. So rather like in a textbook, or if you want more, if you want to go into more depth, then it's there if you really want to look towards the end of the document to find it. And that's the general approach I'm trying to take throughout, is to keep it short and readable, sufficiently informative, but the depth of information is there if you actually want to go and find it. And within each challenge, I'm stating which theme of the document where we meet that challenge. That's part of the line of sight through the document. Just at the screen, and it might change. It might change, Jenny. Please change. There we go. Oh, bang. Always the way. Right. You'll have seen before those 4 themes because you gave them the green light last time. Slightly different diagram from what you saw. The rest of the structure of the diagram of the document reflects the structure you saw diagrammatically last time. So we've got those 4 themes: the build, the living, the manage, and the natural. Build, living, and natural externally focused, and the manage WAIPA is internally focused on council's own ways of doing things. 2 high-level aspirational goals to give the reader an idea of what we're trying to achieve under each of those themes. The details of how we achieve them, how we measure what we're achieving, is actually put into the objectives. So if we meet our objectives, we should be meeting these. So that just gives you a quick overview of what we're trying to do, just to see if there are any gaps. Come on, yes, it's done it. And then within each theme, there are 4 focus areas. You will notice that, as we discussed earlier in the year, climate runs through certainly the first 3 and is actually within objectives within the manage WAIPA. So actually climate comes right through, trying to make it business as usual. So one question is, have we got these in the right themes? The greater difficulty is probably whether we've got them, whether we've got the right ones in build or the right ones in living. So happy to receive feedback on that if you think something needs to be switched. Come on, it's on that post-lunch session, isn't it? Right, each focus area has a consistent format. It's presented in tabular form. So a heading, a bit of a context as to what it's about, the objectives, purpose of those objectives. Again, short commentary. Measures of progress, that's still a work in progress. The colleagues are still coming up with alternatives, and certainly some work around targets needs to be done as well. And then for each focus area, I'm looking for there being a couple of critical actions, so really high priority actions, and some supporting actions. And they're going to be the link between this document and the implementation plan. So in doing this, we're starting to work on that implementation plan, because I know you're concerned that we might not actually get that far. Well, determined we are going to. And as was highlighted, I think, in the previous workshop, the need for data, that's the kind of thing that will be in critical actions. The development of emissions pathways is probably going to be critical actions. You've probably seen something in there around the climate policy is probably going to be a critical action. Can't say for definite because that's for your sign off ultimately, but that's the kind of thinking. And then finally, I say finally because it gives Joe hope that I'm actually going to do this within time. The next steps, work is still going on. I'm going to try and get it all wrapped up for you by the end of October, so we've got time to then move on to the next work. But at the moment, what is written is really my words with the help of colleagues. We've got to apply different lenses over that now to make sure we've got consistency, accuracy, taken all kinds of things into account. So we've not run the draft yet past Iwi and Mana Whenua. We haven't really put a climate lens focused over this. The regional council haven't been involved yet, but we obviously need them to be. We're looking at this in the light of the reforms. We've got to make sure that we've got consistency with other strategies, AHWACI, of course, national policy statements, which, as we've got our subject matter experts looking at these drafts and contributing to the work so far, we've probably got those lenses there anyway. And we've got to look at the financial implications, although this is a 30-year strategy and so much can change in terms of funding priorities in that time. We will, of course, want to keep amending it, and I'm assuming you'll want me to come back with future drafts, but please guide me on that. We will want to consult at some point next year. There are other big consultations happening, so we've got to fit that in alongside those. And we also need to be doing fairly soon, starting the work on what are we going to do, when are we going to do it, how are we going to do it, who's going to do it, all the stuff that goes in the action plan, the implementation plan, whichever word we use to call that, all to be done by the end of June. So I've got there in time, and happy for any discussion.
Thank you, Graham. I see, Roger, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Graham. And I take it from your initial comments that really what you're looking for at this stage are comments on the structure and the linkages and the flow through the document, rather than any detailed discussion on any of the critical actions and plans. And in terms of the structure, I think the structure is great. I think it does flow, and it's easy to track through the document in the different areas of focus. So yeah, I'd just like to say well done on that. I like what you've done so far. And obviously there's loads of discussion on some of the critical actions and things like that, but we'll leave that for a later stage. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. And certainly I'm looking for feedback on the structure or ideas, things that we might have missed, and any suggestions for actions as well. Let's have them into the mix. As I've said to everybody, and I'll repeat it here, this is not my document. This is not a staff document. This is ours. This is council's. This is yours. We've all got to be on the same page and make sure that we're all happy as an organisation that this is what we want going forward.
I did have a little discussion in my mind in terms of whether urban design should be in build or in live, because I think it's got connotations across both of those areas of focus. And I don't know how you could get the inclusion of urban design into both, if you can, because I do think it's got connotations across both those areas.
The themes are really just to structure the document from that point on, and we want to try to get away from silos as much as possible. So there's going to be links between all of those themes, I'm quite sure. But yeah, I take your point. That's one of the reasons why I raised it. You look at those focus areas and should it be here or should it be there? So yeah, we can keep that thinking going.
Mayor Jim, then Claire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions, I suppose. Is there a statutory requirement that we have an environment strategy? And so there's no requirement that we have one. So the timelines that you've put in place are completely self-imposed.
They are coming down through from the Chief Executive.
Yeah, self-imposed. I mean, the organisation is self-imposed, not
me.
The reason I raised the point is it just seems to me that there's a huge amount of work you've already done, and there's a lot more to come to actually get it to any state that it's going to be acceptable to the community, including some indication about what it's going to cost. And I got the feeling that with Ahuaki moving ahead, quite a lot of this is actually covered in that document anyway, but with the reforms that we're facing, RMA, with a new natural and built environment, a new spatial planning document, a new climate change bill that's going to be drafted shortly. NPS is on just about everything you can think of, from Indigenous biodiversity through to urban intensification, freshwater, the list goes on and on. All of those are going to have an impact on what we actually say in our environment strategy. So I'm just wondering if it's not a case of moving ahead slowly with this and actually letting some of these other documents actually get through. So we actually have got some certainty about what we're talking about, because at the moment, my gut feeling is we could do all of this work and it'll get turned on its head the moment some of these other national strategy documents actually get set in stone.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I can see these other things coming on the horizon as well, and there's a need to retain a certain agility in the face of them, and they do provide some uncertainty. But of course, our staff are over at least the drafts of these policy statements and so on. So they've got an idea as to what the thinking is coming out from Wellington. Also, we are wanting to build in 5-yearly reviews into this. Now, whether that's a time frame that gives us sufficient agility to make changes that come from these documents, we might just have to wait and see. But in terms of the timescale, I'm in the hands of others in the organisation. But at the moment, I'm working to the 30th of June, and that's what I intend to deliver for you.
Thanks, Graham. Kirsty, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to respond to the point that Jim has made, the current environment strategy is one that we've had for a significant number of years now. I think 2010 was when that was first developed, and that was something that when we developed this strategy review program, we were very conscious of, that we had a number of different strategies that had been introduced but not necessarily followed by a detailed implementation plan and or monitoring and review. Absolutely agree and acknowledge that our external environment and therefore the environment that we work in is forever changing. And yes, we're also mindful that we've committed to deliver this, but also having our eye on what's happening and coming at us. So whilst we've signalled 5-yearly review, and that's in terms of our long-term plan, budgeting and resourcing, I think we're also very much mindful that our environment that we work in is changing. With regard to Ahuaki, we're working on what is, the first iteration, and acknowledging that too, we want that to be a live document, and that will go through a monitoring and review process. And it may well be that over time, that becomes the document that these things get incorporated within. But I think we need to have clarity about what is important to our communities. We can see from the earlier presentation in respect of climate change that we've got a lot of great work that's happening across our organisation. We're focused very much on our organisation, but how do we pull that together and then and work together with our communities and other agencies? So I think point well noted, Mayor Jim, and we will be mindful of that. We have committed through the business planning exercise that's agreed through the Chief Executive to this piece of work, but perhaps, keen to hear your feedback through the remainder of the session this afternoon, and then do a bit of an audit as to where we're at and what more we need to be doing in this space.
Claire.
Thanks, Graham. I'm really happy with what's been produced so far. I do have a number of suggestions and ideas, which I'll email through to you. Just the suggestion that Ahuaki might cover off a lot of whether or not that would sort of be a suitable vehicle to sort of encapsulate or present the environment strategy. I'm inclined not to agree, but that's mainly because I see Ahuaki really very much focused on infrastructure, really. And this is these actions in here are actually at I suppose a level down from infrastructure. That's that sort of broader level, and a lot of them are community-based things as well, or fostering actions that individuals can take. And so it doesn't really fit well with a spatial plan, I'm hoping that what will come out of our consultation is a forum which will look after ongoing iterations, and maybe that will mean that the environment strategy will actually be a living document. It's something that is just for people who are interested. Not everyone will be interested, I guess, but they can be feeding into it, or they can be sharing good practice, or great ideas that others have done and working out how they can do it here. And I mean, what I do like about it is that it does give some ideas about metrics, about setting some targets that you can measure performance against. And I'm hoping the community might also, you know, come up with some other measures that they think are great. Like one of them I've suggested is the number of participative democracy forums we have on environmental issues a year, you know, so yeah, and yeah, so I'm really pleased to see it at this point in time, and yeah, there is a lot of more to be done on it, but I still think it's shaping up pretty well, and yeah, looking forward to the next stage. Thanks.
Yeah, great comments, Claire. Yeah, but like you, I've got a bunch of things, but I don't think it's probably appropriate for me to raise a lot of them here now. But I mentioned, I suppose it was last week, in the course of discussions around, I suppose, Indigenous knowledge and Mā Tauranga Māori, when definitely, and you've acknowledged that we've got a lot of work to do in that space. I guess we need to know what that is and try and understand it as best we can. Otherwise, we're being asked to adopt really seismic shifts in thinking into our documents unknowingly, and I accept that that, you know, we're in an environment now, excuse the pun, where there's a lot more liberal and open-mindedness around these issues, but around this table, I think we'd probably take a greater comfort from having a bit more work and understanding of what this is that we're actually being asked to incorporate into the fabric of our strategies. So I look forward to seeing what you come back with on that space. And of course, my usual bugbear, because you know me, on page 16, you make reference to encouraging businesses to diversification that reduces WAIPA's reliance on primary industries with a high carbon footprint. So it dovetailed very nicely into our discussions, I guess, earlier this afternoon around climate change and the issue we may have in that space. So I don't know that I would feel very comfortable endorsing a strategy saying that we're actually encouraging pretty much the death knell of livestock farming. So I imagine that would be a pretty contentious issue.
I mean, it's not the death knell. I mean, in the emissions reduction plan, it talks about dairying being likely to reduce by 8 to 22%. Okay, so it's not a death knell, that's all. And that might not be what happens in WAIPA. It's across the country, you know. Yeah.
I just mean to say that I think that the objective there as it's written could be quite startling, and we need to kind of understand a little bit more about what that is. And I'm not sure that it is an organisation where many of our communities would feel very comfortable with us taking that position. And I accept what you say. It might not be the death knell. I've probably chosen my words rather inflammatory, but I think it's a reality of what underpins our economy and what makes up our communities.
I mean, the situation with that is that with our pastoral system, you have the most efficient business that you can do. If we drag that down, we have less environmental practices coming from overseas to cover that at a worse situation than what New Zealand pastoral farming can do. I mean, it's brilliant. At the moment, everybody has been affected by high grain prices. We don't feed grain in New Zealand, and they're unsustainable. So they're all screaming blue murder because they're not making any profits. So why would we do that, try and reverse some things like that, when you have a less efficient barn system overseas? It's completely nuts.
Your comments, Councillor, remind me that this is very much a first draft, a very first cut of words.
Sorry, I didn't mean to open a can of worms.
No. I think it's important, because conscious that we're live streaming this workshop, that the point wasn't to reduce the agricultural sector at all. The point was that if we can diversify the economy in other lines, so that if we grow the economy, that other part grows as a percentage of the economy, which means that we've got more resilience in the economy. And if that bit grows, then the percentage that is agricultural will decrease without the industry decreasing. I think that's probably what we're trying to say, but it is a first draft, and it might be that the initial formal words isn't quite what we want to be saying.
Yeah.
So I'll only be conscious of anyone watching this who might, as you say, interpret it in a way that is not actually intended at this stage. So we've got a lot of work to do on the phraseology as well of some of these points. So we're very conscious of that as well. But what I'm really keen to know is, are you happy with me continuing along this track?
Yes, I think so.
I'm not sure if that's the right word,
heads
but,
here, so yes.
And when would you like me to come back with the next version for you? The next version will just have the track changes accepted, probably, if it's tomorrow. But yeah.
Lo, did you have something on to Lo, then Claire.
Thank you very much. And just quickly, through you, Madam Chair, I do think that this has some real validity. I want to actually reflect exactly what Councillor Gordon said. I think it's a well-written document, but I do want to react to the fact that you do not, as you said, accept silos. You've got to keep that out of it. We've got to have this as much broader in perspective, because there's so many issues that can actually impact on this, and they can all interlink. So I really, really think that this is something that should be developed, and it's going to take time. I can see that with council, council with elections and everything going on, and the MPSs, as Mayor Jim said, and all the rest that are coming out in legislation, it could take quite some time to develop. We do need to accept all that information, which at the moment is in a nebulous form rather than an accurate form.
I was just going to
Clear.
I was just going to follow on from Jim's comments, and and I guess Graham's question around when do you want to see something next. I'm not in a rush either. I just want to support what Jim said, because lots of water to go under the bridge, and we could be spending a lot of time and having a lot of conversations. Anyway.
I agree, that's clear.
Yeah, we do have a full work program, but I do think that this is of immense interest to the community. And so thinking of, that pause that's going to happen over the election period, and then with the new councillors, getting up to speed. So I would like to see something early next year, so that we can, because I do think I'm of the firm opinion that climate change, and with that, looking after our environment, is actually just going to increase and increase. And I think we have to be seen to be working on it and doing something in a timely manner.
Certainly. Right.